real quickly that one of the exciting things about the development of this program is former Representative Stapleton was involved in our most recent workshop where we were in the state of Idaho, and the President of the Senate, the President Pro Tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House invited us to do a workshop for the whole legislature. So we did 105 legislators present for that process. Jerry was involved in that, and we really appreciated that. Every one of those has Republicans and Democrats as facilitators. We now have 42 legislators doing that, and for that we're very grateful. One of those additional people is Denise Driehaus, and she's been there from the beginning. We appreciate very much her support. Denise.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I've been involved with Beyond Civility in Hamilton County and the National Institute for Civil Discourse since the beginning of the process, mostly as a favor to Ted Celeste in the beginning, because Ted and I are very good friends, but I have stuck with it because of the value of the work, and I appreciate Ted involving me kind of in the very beginning on the ground floor. The work that we're doing throughout the country in a bipartisan way, intentionally in a bipartisan way, a Democrat and a Republican going into state legislatures, our peers in other parts of the country, is so powerful and so important. And I want to make sure that you understand that it's not ever two Democrats or two Republicans, it's always both sides of the aisle, very intentionally, because this is a bipartisan effort. So here we are in Ohio, as Ted mentioned, the heart of it all, kind of in this election cycle, in the middle of it all. I'm from Hamilton County. Talk about the middle of it all. We are getting a lot of attention right now, and it's fun and it can be challenging because of the tenor of the debate that's going on at the national level. And some of us are on the ballot this year, so there's an extra layer of paying some attention to what we're doing, the language that we're using. And I do want to say it's good fun to be with some of my former colleagues. Here, I haven't seen Jerry in a while, and Stins, it's good to see you too. It's such a good group of people that are doing this work. But anyway, presidential year in the state of Ohio. Our problems are in the community, negative ads, community conversations, and I think what we are attempting to do is steer those conversations into a productive conversation instead of seeing them devolve into negative conversations that really, as Frank said, get us nowhere. The animosity between everyday people with opposing views can be very destructive. And I frankly feel that as the elected officials in those communities, we are setting the example for the individuals that live in our communities, because they do look to us as to how we interact with our colleagues and the civil discourse that we use at the state level. Today, many Americans have few personal relationships with people that disagree with them other than family members. Think about who you interact with and whether or not you're surrounding yourself with people that tend to agree with your point of view. We can't be content to stand on partisan sidelines. We need to talk to people who disagree with us. We need to learn where they're coming from, and we need to commit to solve problems together. I'm on a steering committee, as I mentioned, for the Beyond the Civility group in Hamilton County. We're on a mission to facilitate constructive conversations despite our differences. That's how we bring well-reasoned problem solving to our communities. Civility and truly communicating with one another it's a choice that we make intentionally. The current climate of divisiveness and incivility in our country will only improve if we all work together to revive civility by listening to one another and respecting one another. I want to give you a quick example of what Beyond Civility looks like in Hamilton County. It's another group I've been involved with for a couple of years. Same intent is to create civil discourse on a local level. We have a lot of judges involved, the media is involved, elected officials are involved, and we do these things called side-by-sides, where you get someone, a Democrat and a Republican, with opposing views on a lot of different issues, and you have them talk about themselves and why they're in politics and what their families are like and what their everyday lives are like. And you get to know one another. And as Frank was saying, it's much harder to attack someone and be vicious towards someone if you know someone. Even if you disagree with them, if you know their background, if you know their kids, you know their spouses, it is much more difficult to then attack that person, you tend to leave that go. And that's where we're trying to go with the civil discourse work we're doing. I didn't do a side-by-side, I did a back-to-back. So a back-to-back, and there haven't been that many of them, and I'm not sure why I had the first one, was when a Republican and Democrat, I was a Democrat, Lou Blessing, former colleague from Hamilton County, veteran legislator, was the Republican. And we debated, but I was the Republican, and he was the Democrat. And we talked about taxes, and we talked about education issues, and we talked about the environment. We talked about issues where Democrats and Republicans do not necessarily agree. And we had to do it in a thoughtful, in a civil way. We had in a big auditorium. Ted came down for that. And the exercise was so important because I had to get into the mind of a Republican that thinks the opposite of what I think on vouchers or education issues or tax reform. And it was a great exercise because it makes you more thoughtful. It makes you understand the rationale. And while people behave like they do, and the motivation, what drives people to think what they think, what is their background? And so for me personally, it was a real growing experience, and the audience too reacted because we had to, like, it was almost like we were characters and playing roles, and it was so helpful, and they then started to respond to him saying something that was opposite of his views and myself saying something that was generally opposite of my views. So a very interesting exercise, helps you get into the mind of the opposition and then create some respect for their point of view, which is the point of the organization to begin with. So again, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you, Ted, for inviting me to speak. And I just think it's really, really important work. Not only is the tone of politics divisive and dangerous, but the tone overall right now in the country has become what I consider to be very uncivil. And we need to lead the charge in bringing people back together to move the country forward. Thank you.